My name is Marcus. I'm 47 years old, and for the past 25 years, my life has been a meticulously crafted schedule of ambition and sacrifice. I started at Harrison & Sons, a prestigious architectural firm in the heart of San Francisco, as a wide-eyed intern, straight out of college. Back then, the city felt like a grand, intricate model waiting to be built, and I was determined to be one of its chief architects. Now I'm a senior project manager. My office on the 30th floor of the Montgomery Tower, a monument to decades of blueprints, late nights, and the silent hum of a city that never sleeps. I built this life with my own hands, brick by metaphorical brick, each promotion a new layer of concrete on my monument to success. I thought it was what I wanted. More importantly, I thought it was what my family wanted. The day started like any other Tuesday. The San Francisco fog, a thick and grey blanket, clung to the bay, muting the morning sun and the vibrant colours of the city. I was sitting at my kitchen table, a mug of black coffee steaming in front of me, staring at the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle. The headlines were a blur. My mind was on the upcoming board meeting. The CEO, old Mr. Harrison, was retiring, and a successor was to be announced. For months, everyone in the firm knew I was the front-runner. I had managed the city's largest, most profitable projects, the Embarcadero revitalization, the Bay Bridge North Tower expansion. My portfolio was a testament to my dedication and skill. I had the respect of my colleagues and the trust of my clients. The CEO position was my destiny, the final capstone on my quarter-century monument. My girlfriend, Sarah, walked in, her movements fluid and quiet. She placed a plate of scrambled eggs and bacon on the table. We've been together for 20 years, 2 decades. She knows me better than anyone, the good, the bad, and the exhausting. She knows the way I get a nervous tick in my jaw when a deadline looms, the way I obsess over a single line in a blueprint until it's perfect. "Nervous?" she asked, her voice soft, but with a slight edge I couldn't place. "Nervous?" I scoffed, trying to project a confidence I didn't entirely feel. I adjusted the lapels of my silk robe. "I'm ready. It's what I've worked for my entire life. It's a formality." She sat down across from me. Her eyes, usually so full of warmth, held a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Pity, concern. "Marcus," she said, her tone serious, "don't get your hopes up too much. You know how these things go. The board can be unpredictable." I pushed the plate away, my appetite gone. "I know, but this is different. This is my time. My resume speaks for itself." Later that evening, the family dinner at my parents' house in the Sunset District was a tense affair. The house was filled with the familiar smell of my mother's pot roast, but the warmth I usually felt was absent. My sister Emily was there with her husband David and my 2 nephews, who were more interested in their video games than in my career. My father, Richard, a retired civil engineer with a lifetime of stern lectures under his belt, looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "So, the big day is tomorrow, son. The board meeting." "Yes, Dad, it is." "Heard they're looking for fresh blood," my brother James chimed in from the couch, his voice laced with a condescending tone. James, a successful tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, had always seen me as the predictable, boring older brother. He had made a fortune in his 20s and had spent the last 2 decades making sure everyone knew it. You know, someone younger, more innovative, someone who understands the digital landscape of architecture. My heart sank. My own family. I expected them to be supportive, to be proud. Instead, they were questioning me, my age, my relevance. "I have more experience than anyone there," I retorted, the words sharp with a frustration that had been building all day. "Experience is great, Marcus," my mother Eleanor said gently, her hand resting on mine. "But in this day and age, companies want energy. They want someone who can work 100 hours a week without burning out. You're not a kid anymore. You're established." Established. The word was a euphemism for old. Their words were a punch to the gut. "You're too old." The unspoken sentiment hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The very people I had worked to impress, the people whose validation I had sought my entire life, were now telling me I was past my prime. I felt a wave of cold clarity. Was this it? All my hard work, my sacrifices, my life, reduced to a matter of age. I left dinner early, the taste of disappointment bitter in my mouth. I drove back to my apartment, the San Francisco streets a blur of red taillights and city lights. Sarah was waiting up for me, a book open on her lap. She saw the defeat on my face the moment I walked in. "They don't get it, do they?" she asked, her voice filled with a quiet understanding. "No," I said, running a hand through my hair. "They think I'm too old, that I've lost my edge, that I'm not relevant anymore." "Marcus, you are more than your age. You've been the backbone of that company for a quarter of a century. You've earned this." Her words were a balm on the open wound, but the doubt lingered. I had spent so long building this life, this identity, based on the approval of others. Now, with the final piece of the puzzle within reach, their lack of faith had shattered my confidence. The next day, the air in the boardroom was thick with anticipation. The board members, a panel of stoic, powerful men and women, sat around the mahogany table. Mr. Harrison, his face a roadmap of a lifetime in the industry, stood at the head. He cleared his throat. "I want to thank you all for your years of dedication to Harrison & Sons. It's been an honor to serve as your CEO, but now it's time for new leadership." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The moment I had dreamed of, worked for. He looked at me, a slight smile on his face, and I prepared for my name to be called. "And so," he continued, "I am proud to announce the new CEO of Harrison & Sons." He paused, a long, drawn-out moment that felt like an eternity. "My successor is a rising star in the industry, someone with an incredible vision and a deep understanding of our firm's core values." The name that came next was not my own. My world stopped, the room blurred. The sound in my ears was a high-pitched ringing. The name was a woman's name, a name I knew. The room erupted in applause, but it was distant, muffled. All I could focus on was the figure walking confidently to the front of the room. A woman in a tailored suit, her posture impeccable, her face a mask of professional poise. My heart ached with a deep, consuming pain. Not only had I been passed over, but my family's words echoed in my mind. Too old, lost my edge, fresh blood. As the new CEO took the stage, I saw her face clearly for the first time, the familiar smile, the kindness in her eyes. It was a face I had known for 20 years. My world, already shattered, was about to be completely rewritten. The applause was a deafening roar in my ears. It wasn't the sound of celebration, but the sound of my life unraveling. The new CEO of Harrison & Sons stood at the podium, her smile radiating a quiet confidence. The board members, my colleagues, they were all on their feet, clapping. I sat frozen in my seat, a statue of defeat and disbelief. The woman at the podium, I knew her. I knew the way her hair fell, the way she held herself, the very scent of her when she was close. But it couldn't be. My mind scrambled for an explanation, a different reality, but the undeniable truth was standing right in front of me. Her name was Sarah, my girlfriend of 20 years. The world tilted on its axis. My brain struggled to connect the dots. The Sarah I knew was a freelance graphic designer. She worked from home, her days filled with client calls and creative projects. She was a constant, a bedrock in my turbulent, ambitious life. She was the one who made my coffee, listened to my work complaints, and provided a calm, steady presence. She wasn't a corporate titan. She couldn't be. Not my Sarah. Mr. Harrison, his hand on her shoulder, beamed with pride. "As many of you know," he announced to the room, his voice filled with a father's deep affection, "Sarah Harrison is my daughter." A collective gasp swept through the room. I wasn't the only one who didn't know. The murmurs began, whispers of Harrison & Sons, of nepotism. But then Mr. Harrison held up his hand, silencing the crowd. "And for those of you who think this is an act of simple legacy, let me assure you, Sarah has spent the last decade working tirelessly under a different name, building her own successful firm, Creative Heights, from the ground up. She proved herself to me and to the board without the weight of my name on her shoulders. Her vision for the future of this company is unmatched. She has a plan to merge the old-world craft of architecture with the new-world innovation of sustainable design, a concept she has championed for years. The words were a blur. I looked at Sarah. Her eyes met mine across the crowded room, and in them I saw an apology, a plea for understanding and a resolute strength I had never seen before. She had kept this from me, all this time. The late nights she said she was working on a design project, the business trips she took for a client meeting in New York, the subtle questions she asked me about the firm's inner workings and our long-term strategies. It all made sense now. The puzzle pieces of her life that I never could fit together suddenly clicked into place, forming a picture I couldn't have imagined. After the announcement, the room dissolved into a sea of congratulations. I stood there, rooted to the spot, a feeling of betrayal and confusion washing over me. Sarah walked off the stage, greeting her new board members, her face a mix of professional charm and deep anxiety. She finally broke away and walked toward me, her heels clicking on the polished floor, each step a hammer blow to my fragile ego. "Marcus," she said, her voice low, I can explain." Explain? The word was a bitter taste in my mouth. Explain what? That you've been living a double life for a decade? That you're the new CEO of the company I dedicated my life to, and you never told me? My voice was low, a dangerous rumble of emotion. "It wasn't that simple," she pleaded, her hands reaching for mine. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was afraid of how you would react, of how it would change things between us. My father didn't want me to get the job just because of my name. He wanted me to prove myself. So I did. I started my own firm and I never told anyone who I was, and when this opportunity came up, it was too important to pass up. It was my chance. I was going to tell you." "When?" "After you were already sitting in the CEO's chair, after you took what I spent my life working for." The raw hurt in my voice made her flinch. A colleague, one of the junior managers named Tom, approached us, a look of shocked excitement on his face. "Marcus, isn't that Sarah, your girlfriend, the new CEO?" The question hung in the air, a public confirmation of my private humiliation. I felt the stares of my colleagues, the silent judgment, the whispers. The world felt like it was closing in on me. I couldn't stand it. "Excuse me," I mumbled, and turned on my heel, walking away. I needed to get out of there. I needed to breathe. I needed to understand what had just happened. I walked the San Francisco streets, the fog now a familiar cloak of my despair. The city lights, once a promise of a bright future, seemed to mock me. Every skyscraper I passed, every meticulously designed building, was a testament to my life's work, a work that now felt utterly pointless. I had lost the one thing I had worked for, and I had lost the one person I thought I could trust. I went to a small, dark bar in the Mission District, a place I had never been before. I ordered a whiskey, neat, and stared into the amber liquid, seeing my life reflected in its depths. My father's expectations, my mother's concern, James's condescending remarks. It all led to this. I had been so focused on the destination, on the title, that I had missed the most important part of the journey. I had taken Sarah for granted. I had seen her as a supporting character in my life story, a silent partner. I never considered that she had a story of her own, a story she had been living right under my nose, a story more ambitious and successful than my own. The phone rang. It was Sarah. I stared at the screen, the name glowing in the dark bar. I ignored it. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't ready to hear her side of the story. I was too consumed by my own. I was the protagonist of a tragedy, and in my version, she was the villain. But as I took another sip of whiskey, a terrible, humbling thought occurred to me. Maybe I was the one who had been wrong all along. Maybe I had been too blind to see her for who she truly was. Maybe I had been too busy chasing a dream to see the person right next to me living her own. I didn't go home that night. I stayed in a cheap motel room in the city, the kind of place with a humming air conditioner and the stale smell of old carpet. My phone kept buzzing with Sarah's name, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. The thought of her, the sound of her voice, was a fresh wave of pain. I felt a deep, profound sense of betrayal. Not just at what she did, but at what she had been hiding. The life we had built together, was it all a lie? Was I just a part of her cover story, a convenient prop in her secret, ambitious life? The morning light was harsh, revealing a deep exhaustion I felt in my bones. I finally checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls from Sarah, a few from my parents, probably to gloat or worse, to offer empty condolences. A message from James. "You okay, bro?" The irony was thick enough to choke on. I ignored them all and decided to go to my office. I had a lot to pack. My tenure at Harrison & Sons, a quarter of a century of my life, was now over. When I arrived, the atmosphere was different. The usual buzz of a busy office was replaced by a strange, quiet tension. People looked at me with a mix of pity and curiosity. The news had spread like wildfire. Everyone knew I was the one who had been passed over, and now they also knew that the new CEO was my girlfriend. My humiliation was complete and public. It felt like walking through a gauntlet of silent judgment. I walked to my office, the familiar path now feeling alien. The door was ajar. I pushed it open and saw Sarah sitting at my desk, holding a picture frame. The photo was of us, taken on a weekend trip to Napa Valley a few years ago. We were standing in a field of golden sunflowers, smiling, carefree, in love. The image felt like a relic from a different life, a time before ambition and betrayal had turned our world upside down. "Marcus," she said, her voice soft and strained, "I was hoping you'd come here. We need to talk." I closed the door behind me, the sound echoing in the silence. "There's nothing to talk about, Sarah. You made your decision. You chose your career over our relationship." "My decision?" She stood up, placing the picture frame back on the desk. "Marcus, this wasn't an easy decision. My father was retiring and he asked me to come home. He had been watching my work for years. He believed in my vision for the company. He offered me this position and I took it. I never wanted to hurt you. I was going to tell you, I swear." "When?" I said, the words coming out as a harsh whisper. "On our 20th anniversary? Over a celebratory dinner for your new job? The job I've been working my whole life for?" My voice rose with the pain and anger that had been simmering for 2 days. "I know it looks bad," she said, her eyes welling up with tears, "but you have to understand. I've lived in the shadow of my father's company my entire life. I wanted to prove I could do it on my own without his name. I built my own company, my own reputation. This was my chance to show everyone that I was more than just Mr. Harrison's daughter." "And what about me, Sarah? What about my life, my reputation? Did that ever cross your mind?" "Of course it did," she cried, the tears now streaming down her face. "That's why I was so afraid to tell you. I was afraid you would see me as a threat, not as your partner. I thought if you saw how hard I worked, how much I sacrificed, you would understand. I wanted us to be a team. A team. You can't be a team when one person is playing a different game with a different set of rules and never tells the other person. You can't have a partnership built on a lie, Sarah. That's not a partnership, it's a performance." She took a step closer, her voice filled with a desperate plea. "Marcus, please, look at me. This is me. This is who I am. The same person who loves you, who has been by your side for 20 years. My career doesn't change that. I've always been proud of you. I've always believed in you." The words felt hollow. I couldn't reconcile the woman in front of me with the person I had known for 2 decades. The woman who made me coffee, who comforted me after a bad day, was now my boss. The one who had indirectly taken the one thing I wanted more than anything. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. I ignored it. I was in no mood to talk to her, or anyone in my family. Their doubts, their subtle cruelties had laid the groundwork for my humiliation. They were right about one thing. I was too old. Not in years, but in spirit. I had been too comfortable, too complacent. I hadn't seen the storm brewing right under my nose. "I have to pack my things," I said, my voice flat. "I'm sure you have a lot of work to do, as the new CEO." The title hung in the air, a barbed insult. She winced. "Marcus, don't do this. Don't push me away. We can get through this. We can figure it out." "How, Sarah? Are you going to be my boss and my girlfriend? Are you going to tell me what to do in the boardroom and then come home and ask me about my day? This isn't a partnership. This is something else, and I don't know what it is." She took a deep, shaky breath, her composure returning. "Then we'll figure it out. Together. You have to believe me, Marcus. My love for you has nothing to do with this company. It never has. Her words were a faint echo against the roar of my wounded pride. I was still angry, still hurt, still reeling. I couldn't see past my own pain. I looked at the picture on my desk again, the happy, smiling couple. It was a lie, a beautiful, carefully crafted lie. I grabbed a box from the corner of my office and began packing, my movements stiff and robotic. "Just go, Sarah," I said, my back to her. "I need to be alone." She stood there for a moment, silent. I could feel her presence, the weight of her sadness. Then I heard the door click shut. I was alone in my office, surrounded by the remnants of my career, the memories of a life that was now over. And I was left with the dawning realization that the person I had loved and trusted most had been the one to finally break me. But as I looked around the room, at the piles of blueprints and binders, a new thought began to take hold. I had lost the job, but I hadn't lost my skill. I hadn't lost my passion. I had lost my way. I had been so focused on reaching the top that I hadn't realized what a trap it was. The CEO position at Harrison & Sons was a gilded cage. Maybe, just maybe, this was a chance to start over, a chance to rebuild, a chance to find out who Marcus was without the title of CEO. But that required me to face a difficult truth. My family was wrong, but Sarah was right. I just didn't know if I could ever forgive her for being the one to show me. I spent the next 2 days in a blur of packing, cleaning, and avoiding calls. My phone was a constant source of anxiety, buzzing with messages from Sarah, my parents, and James. I ignored them all. My apartment, which had once felt like a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. I was a man adrift, cut loose from the anchor of my career and my relationship. The silence in my apartment was deafening, a stark contrast to the constant hum of a life I no longer had. My mind replayed the events of the past few days like a broken film reel, each loop more painful than the last. On Friday, my phone rang with a number I couldn't ignore. It was my father. His voice, when he finally spoke, was not what I expected. It was not filled with condescension or pity, but with a quiet, strained tension. "Marcus," he said, "your mother is worried sick about you. You haven't answered any of our calls. We need to talk. We're all here at the house." I considered hanging up, but something in his tone stopped me. "What is there to talk about, Dad? You and the rest of the family were right. I'm too old. The company needed someone with fresh blood, and they found her." The words were laced with a bitter irony I couldn't hide. "Marcus, that's not what this is about," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "We saw the news. We saw who the new CEO is. We didn't know. I swear to you, we didn't." I scoffed. "And you expect me to believe that? Sarah Harrison, the daughter of the CEO of the company I've been working at for 25 years? You went to college with him, Dad. You knew the family. You knew. You all knew, and you just let me walk into that ambush." "Son, listen to me," he said, his voice firm, the old patriarch coming through. "We've known the Harrisons for years. We went to college with them. We're friends. But we never knew Sarah was their daughter. They kept her maiden name, and she kept her professional life separate. She never came to the company parties or the family gatherings we went to. We thought they had a son named Michael who was going into the family business. We were just as surprised as you were." The words hit me. Was it possible? I had always assumed my parents had some secret knowledge, some inside track to the world of corporate America. But what if they were just as clueless as I was? What if their words were not based on a secret betrayal, but on their own anxieties and misunderstandings? My family's fears about my age, about me being passed over, were a reflection of their own fears about their son's place in the world. "I don't believe you," I said, the words a knee-jerk reaction. My pride was a wall I couldn't easily tear down. "Then come over. Now. We'll talk. Your mother is cooking dinner. Your sister is here. We're all here. We need to do this face to face." I hesitated. The thought of facing my family, of opening myself up to more hurt, was daunting. But the possibility, however slim, that they were telling the truth was a fragile hope. I needed to know. I needed to understand. The alternative was a life of bitter isolation, and I couldn't live like that. I drove to my parents' house in the Sunset District, the familiar streets of my childhood, now feeling like a foreign country. When I walked in, the atmosphere was a mix of relief and tension. My mother rushed to hug me, her embrace tight and filled with a silent apology. Emily and James were sitting on the couch, their faces etched with concern, their usual easy banter gone. "Marcus," my mother said, her voice trembling slightly, "we are so sorry. We never wanted to hurt you. When we said those things, we were just afraid. We've seen so many people get passed over for younger candidates. We were trying to prepare you for a disappointment that we thought was inevitable." I looked at my father. He nodded, his eyes meeting mine. "Your mother's right, son. We were wrong to say those things. We should have believed in you. We should have been proud of your dedication, your work ethic. We were trying to protect you, and in doing so, we did the opposite. We made you feel like you weren't good enough. That was wrong, and I'm sorry." A wave of emotion I hadn't expected washed over me. It wasn't anger. It was a deep, consuming sadness. My family, the people I had been trying to impress my entire life, had been projecting their own fears and insecurities onto me. They weren't trying to tear me down. They were trying to brace me for a fall they believed was coming. It didn't excuse their words, but it explained them. And in a strange way, it was almost more painful than outright malice. "And Sarah," James said, his voice uncharacteristically soft, "we honestly didn't know. We all thought she was just a graphic designer. She's an incredible woman, Marcus. And she clearly loves you. She wouldn't have kept this from you unless she was truly afraid of how you would react." The truth was a bitter pill to swallow. I had been so focused on my own pain, my own humiliation, that I hadn't considered the fear that Sarah must have been feeling. The fear of losing me. The fear that I would see her success as a threat to my own masculinity. The fear that our relationship, which had been so steady and so predictable, would be shattered by her ambition. "I need to go," I said, the words coming out in a rush. "Where are you going?" my mother asked, her hand on my arm. "I have to talk to Sarah." My family looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. They had said what they needed to say. The ball was now in my court. My father's hand rested on my shoulder. "Go get her, son," he said, a look of paternal pride I hadn't seen in years on his face. "This isn't just about the job anymore. It's about your life." I drove back to the city, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. The anger at my family had been a shield. Now that it was gone, I was left with the raw, exposed truth. They were not malicious. They were just flawed like me. And Sarah, I had been so quick to condemn her, to see her as a villain, that I had forgotten the 20 years we had shared. The late nights, the early mornings, the quiet companionship. She had been my rock, and in my pride I had thrown that rock away. I pulled up to our apartment building, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't have a plan. I only knew that I needed to see her, I needed to apologize, I needed to hear her side of the story, without the bitterness and the ego. I needed to see the woman I loved, not the CEO who had taken my job, because in my heart, I knew. She hadn't taken anything. I had let go of it myself years ago when I decided that the title was more important than the person. Now, I had a chance to get both back. I stood in front of our apartment door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The familiar silence of our building felt different now, charged with the weight of everything that had happened. I took a deep breath and let myself in. The apartment was quiet. The soft glow of a lamp illuminated the living room. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her laptop on the coffee table, a cup of tea untouched beside it. She was staring at a blank television screen, lost in thought. The city lights of San Francisco shimmered in the darkness behind her, 1,000 tiny, unblinking eyes. She looked up, and her eyes, red-rimmed and exhausted, met mine. "Marcus," she said, her voice barely a whisper, filled with a mixture of surprise and relief. "You came back." "I did," I said, walking slowly towards her. I sat on the coffee table in front of her, my hands clasped together, my head down. "I owe you an apology, Sarah. I've been a coward. I've been so consumed with my own pride and my own hurt that I haven't even considered what you've been going through. I've been a terrible partner. I jumped to conclusions, I assumed the worst, and I walked away when you needed me to stay." A tear rolled down her cheek. "Marcus, you have every right to be angry. I should have told you. I never should have let it get this far. I put you in an impossible position, and I'm so sorry." "No," I said, looking up at her, my voice thick with emotion. "You shouldn't have to apologize for your success. I was the one who was wrong. My family, they were wrong about me. And they were wrong about you, too. They didn't know. No one did. You kept this secret for a reason. You were afraid of what it would do to us. And I proved you right. I should have trusted you, regardless." I reached out and took her hand. It was cold, and her grip was weak. "Sarah, you didn't take anything from me. You earned it. You built your own company, your own reputation. You showed them all what you were capable of. I was so focused on the destination, on the CEO title, that I never stopped to think about the journey. And I was so busy trying to live up to my family's expectations that I forgot to live for myself and for us." A small, sad smile touched her lips. "I love you, Marcus. I was so afraid I had lost you. I love you too." The words felt new, fresh, cleansed of the bitterness that had stained them for days. "And I'm so proud of you. I can't imagine how hard it was, carrying that secret all this time. You must have been so afraid of losing me." "Every single day," she admitted, her voice cracking. "Every time you talked about the promotion, every time you mentioned the CEO position, my heart would sink. I knew what it would do to you. I knew your whole life was wrapped up in that one goal. I just didn't know how to tell you without it feeling like I was taking a win from you. I didn't want it to be a competition." We sat in silence for a long time, just holding hands, the unspoken emotions hanging in the air, the resentment, the fear, the misunderstanding. It was all still there, but now it was a foundation we could build upon, not a wall between us. The air was filled with the promise of reconciliation. "So," she said, finally breaking the silence, her tone a little lighter, "what happens now?" I looked at her, at the woman who was not only my girlfriend but my new boss. The situation was still impossibly complicated, but now it felt less like a tragedy and more like a challenge. "I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I have some savings, I have some contacts. Maybe I'll start my own firm. Maybe I'll do freelance. I don't know." "You can do anything you want, Marcus," she said, her eyes filled with a resolute belief. "I'll support you no matter what. But I was hoping you would consider something else." "What's that?" "I need you at Harrison & Sons, Marcus. I need your experience, your expertise. I'm not just the CEO, I'm the new CEO. I'm a visionary, but you're a builder. You know the inner workings of that firm better than anyone. I need a partner, a collaborator. I need someone I can trust. I need you." Her words were a surprise. She wasn't just offering me a job, she was offering me a partnership. She wasn't asking me to work for her, she was asking me to work with her. "I don't know, Sarah," I said, the old doubts returning. "Working together, it could be difficult, for both of us. People will talk." "It will be," she admitted, "and people will talk. But we've been through harder things. We can set boundaries. We can create our own rules. We can make this work. We can do this together, Marcus. A new beginning, for us and for the company." I looked out at the lights of San Francisco. I had been so afraid of being too old, of being left behind, but Sarah wasn't leaving me behind. She was pulling me forward, asking me to join her on this new, terrifying and exhilarating journey. My father's words echoed in my mind. "Go get her, son." He wasn't just talking about our relationship, he was talking about my life. I squeezed her hand. "Okay, Sarah, let's do it. Let's build something new." A slow, brilliant smile spread across her face. It was the first time I had seen her truly happy in days. It was a smile of hope and relief, a smile that promised a future I hadn't even dared to dream of. The path ahead was uncertain, The challenges were immense, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. Because I wasn't alone. I had Sarah. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just chasing a title. I was building a life. The first few weeks at Harrison & Sons under Sarah's leadership were a masterclass in navigating a new reality. My old office, once a sanctuary of my professional ambition, was now my workspace. But the person who occupied the corner office was my girlfriend. The dynamic was strange, at times awkward and always complex. The whispers followed us down the hallways, the curious glances in the elevators. We had become the subject of office gossip, a human drama unfolding in real time, but we faced it together. The first staff meeting under her new title was a testament to her vision. She walked into the boardroom, not with a domineering air, but with a quiet, undeniable confidence. She spoke not just of profits and market shares, but of community, sustainability, and innovation. She announced a new initiative to focus on eco-friendly urban development, a passion project she had been working on for years. The plan was bold, risky, and unlike anything the firm had ever done. It was about building smarter, not just bigger. The room was a mix of awe and skepticism, the old guard wary, the younger employees captivated. I watched her, a quiet pride swelling in my chest. This was the woman I loved, the one I had taken for granted, and she was an absolute force of nature. She was the fresh blood my family had talked about, but she was so much more. She was a visionary. She was the future, and I was a part of it. My role as a senior project manager was more vital than ever. Sarah relied on my knowledge of the firm, my deep understanding of the city's building codes, and my long-standing relationships with key clients. We worked together, late into the night, in a way we never had before. It wasn't just a professional collaboration, it was a partnership of equals. We would debate a design concept for hours, our conversation filled with the kind of intellectual give and take that was exhilarating. Then we would drive home together, our hands intertwined, and talk about our day, our fears, our hopes, our dreams. The office drama would stay at the office, and our personal lives would remain our own. We were building a new kind of relationship, one where the professional and the personal coexisted, each strengthening the other. The lines were blurred, but in a good way. We were a team, not just in our professional lives, but in our personal ones. The old jealousies, the old insecurities began to fade. I saw her not as the person who took my job, but as the person who had unlocked a part of me I had forgotten. The part that was creative, that was passionate, that was not defined by a title. I was no longer just the senior project manager. I was a key part of the new Harrison & Sons, a co-creator in its new direction. My family, for their part, had been humbled. They called and invited us to dinner, and the conversation was no longer about my career, but about us. They were fascinated by Sarah's work, by her plans for the firm. My father, in a rare moment of vulnerability, took me aside. "Son," he said, his voice low, "I was wrong. I thought I was preparing you for the worst, but I was just holding you back. It takes a big man to support a successful woman, and you're doing it. I'm proud of you." The words meant more to me than any promotion ever could have. The validation I had sought for so long was no longer tied to a job title, but to who I was as a man. One afternoon, Sarah and I were in her office, poring over a blueprint for the new urban park project. The office was big, impersonal, but she was already making it her own, with plants and art on the walls, a reflection of her creative spirit. The phone rang, and she answered it. "Sarah Harrison, CEO," she said, her voice clear and strong. I smiled to myself. She had earned that title. She had earned her place at the top. I was no longer the man who had lost his job. I was the man who was building a new life, a new identity. A life that was richer and more fulfilling than I could have ever imagined. The phone call ended, and she looked at me, a playful smirk on her face. "You know, Mr. Marcus, you're an excellent project manager. I'm thinking of giving you a promotion. What do you think?" I laughed, a genuine happy sound that had been absent from my life for too long. "I think I'm happy right where I am, Ms. CEO. I've finally found my place, and it's right here." next to you. A title is just a name. The real work is in the building, and I'm ready to build with you. The journey had been painful. I had to face my insecurities, my ego, and the flaws in my own family. But through it all, I had learned a profound truth. Success wasn't about a title or a corner office. It was about finding your purpose, embracing your passions, and building a life with the person you love. And for me, that was a promotion far more valuable than any I could have ever dreamed of. Our collaboration at the office became a finely tuned machine. Sarah was the visionary, the one with the big, bold ideas about green infrastructure and community-focused design. I was the pragmatist, the one who knew how to make those visions a reality. We were the perfect team, a balance of creative ambition and grounded expertise. The staff, initially hesitant and curious, began to see the synergy. The office atmosphere shifted from one of tense uncertainty to one of energetic innovation. Our new project was the most ambitious yet, a multi-purpose community center in the Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood, a historically underserved area of San Francisco. Sarah's vision was to create a sustainable net-zero energy building that served as a hub for local art, education, and community services. It was a project that went beyond blueprints and profit margins. It was about leaving a legacy, about building something meaningful. We spent our nights not just at the office, but walking the neighborhood, talking to the local residents, hearing their stories and their needs. We met with community leaders, artists, and small business owners. I was no longer just drawing up plans for a building. I was drawing up plans for a community. It was the kind of work I had always wanted to do, but had been too caught up in the corporate ladder to pursue. One evening, we were sitting on a park bench overlooking the bay, the city skyline a glittering tapestry in the distance. The cool evening air was a welcome break from the day's work. "I feel like a different person," I admitted, my voice low. For 25 years, I was chasing a title. I thought that was the end goal, but this is different, this is real. Sarah squeezed my hand. "It is. You're not just building buildings, Marcus. You're building lives. That's what this is all about. This firm was my father's legacy, but now it's ours. And we're building a new kind of legacy. A better one." We were working harder than ever, but the exhaustion was different. It wasn't the draining, soul-crushing fatigue of a life lived for someone else's approval. It was the satisfying tiredness that comes from building something you believe in. The long hours were not a sacrifice, they were a choice to work alongside the woman I loved on a project that truly mattered. The first major hurdle came in the form of a disgruntled city councilman, Arthur Jenkins. He was a political old-timer, a man who saw no value in a project that didn't promise a large return on investment. He saw our project as a waste of city resources, a frivolous do-gooder project that would never pay for itself. He called a meeting with Sarah and me to discuss the viability of the project, a thinly veiled attempt to shut it down. The meeting was tense. Jenkins sat across from us, his face a mask of skeptical condescension. "Ms. Harrison," he said, his voice dripping with false civility, "I have to question the wisdom of this project. A net-zero sustainable community center in a neighborhood with a high poverty rate. It's a pipe dream. We need to be building for economic growth, not social experiments." Sarah, who had been listening calmly, leaned forward. "Councilman, this isn't a social experiment. This is a sound investment. We're not just building a building, we're building an economy. The center will create jobs. It will provide educational resources. It will be a hub for local artists and entrepreneurs. We have a full financial model that shows a return on investment within 10 years, not just in dollars, but in social capital." Jenkins scoffed. "Social capital doesn't pay the bills, Ms. Harrison. I'm not a philanthropist. I'm a public servant. And I have to be responsible with the city's money." I saw the anger flare in Sarah's eyes, but she held it in check. I knew I had to step in. I had the experience with these types of meetings, the old-world political maneuvering. "Councilman Jenkins," I said, my voice calm but firm, "my name is Marcus Reed. I've been with Harrison & Sons for 25 years. I've worked on every major project in this city for the last 2 decades, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that this project is sound. We have a plan for every contingency. We have a team of the most talented architects and engineers in the country. We have the support of the community. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking for a partnership. A partnership to build a better future for this city." Jenkins's eyes narrowed. He knew my name. He knew my work. He knew my reputation was built on hard, undeniable facts, not on abstract visions. He saw the two of us, a united front, a team that could not be easily broken. He saw the passion in Sarah's eyes and the pragmatic resolve in mine. He saw that we were serious, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. The meeting ended without a clear resolution, but we both knew we had won. We had not only presented our case, we had presented ourselves as a formidable team. We had shown him that this wasn't just a whim of the new CEO, it was a deeply considered project, backed by a lifetime of experience. We walked out of the meeting into the bustling city streets, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. We didn't say anything for a moment, just smiled at each other. The unspoken understanding was enough. We were a team, and we were going to build something beautiful. We were going to build a new life, a new legacy, one brick at a time, and we were going to do it together. The victory with Councilman Jenkins was a small one, a single battle won in a long war. The real challenges began when we started the groundwork on the Bayview Hunters Point project. The initial site surveys revealed an unexpected complication, a complex system of ancient, abandoned utility lines that weren't on any official city maps. The discovery threatened to derail the entire timeline and budget. The old guard at the firm, those who had been skeptical of Sarah's vision from the start, saw it as a perfect opportunity to voice their doubts. A perfect example of an unproven concept, a senior architect named Robert grumbled during a project meeting. He had been passed over for the CEO position years ago and had a quiet, simmering resentment that he now directed at Sarah. A more experienced leader would have anticipated these issues. This is why we stick to what we know. Profit-driven, simple designs. The comments were a direct attack, not just on Sarah's plan, but on her leadership. I saw her jaw tighten, but she remained calm. "Robert," she said, her voice even, "the point of innovation is to solve problems, not to run from them. This is an obstacle, not a roadblock. Marcus and I are already working on a solution." Her faith in me was a quiet, powerful force. My years of experience, once seen as a liability by my family, were now our greatest asset. I spent the next several days and nights at the city archives, poring over old blueprints and maps, searching for any trace of the hidden utility lines. The work was tedious, but I was fueled by a new sense of purpose. I wasn't just doing this for the company or for a promotion. I was doing it for Sarah and for the community we were trying to serve. One evening, after another late night at the archives, I came home to find Sarah waiting for me. She had a bottle of my favorite wine and a home-cooked meal ready. She didn't ask me how the search was going. She just listened as I talked, my frustrations and small victories pouring out in a torrent of words. "It's like looking for a ghost in a machine," I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "These lines are from the 1930s. The records are a mess." "I know you'll find it," she said, her voice filled with a simple, unshakable belief. "You always do. You're a human database, Marcus. You know this city better than anyone. They need you. I need you." Her support was the fuel that kept me going. It wasn't just her words, but her actions. She was my partner, not just in our personal life, but in every challenge we faced at the firm. She didn't micromanage me. She trusted me. She gave me the space to solve the problem, and she gave me the support to endure the frustration. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday night. I was at the archives, looking at a grainy black and white map from the Works Progress Administration, a relic from the Great Depression. The map was annotated with a series of cryptic codes that I had never seen before. It was a long shot, but I felt a flicker of hope. I called a retired civil engineer I had worked with decades ago, a man who had been a mentor to me. He was a gruff, no-nonsense man who had seen it all. I sent him a picture of the codes. He called me back an hour later. "Marcus," he said, his voice a low rumble, "those codes, they're from a private project, an old industrial plant that was never built. They ran the lines for it, but the project was abandoned during the war. Nobody ever bothered to document them." A wave of exhilaration washed over me. I had found it. I had found the ghost in the machine. With the codes, I was able to cross-reference them with old city records and piece by piece create a comprehensive map of the underground utility lines. The problem, which had seemed insurmountable, was now a mere engineering challenge. I went straight to Sarah's office. It was late, but she was still there, working. I spread the maps on her desk. "I found it," I said, my voice filled with triumph. "I found the ghost." She looked at the maps, her eyes scanning the intricate lines and codes. A slow smile spread across her face. "I knew you could do it," she said, her voice soft with a mixture of pride and relief. "I told you, you're the builder, Marcus. I just have the vision." The moment was a turning point. It wasn't just about solving a problem. It was about solidifying our partnership. It was about showing the rest of the firm and ourselves that our new dynamic worked. We were not just two people in a relationship. We were a formidable team, each with our own strengths, each supporting the other. The next morning, at the all-staff meeting, Sarah stood at the podium. "I have a new update on the Bayview Hunters Point project," she announced. "Thanks to the tireless efforts of our senior project manager, Marcus Reed, we have a full, comprehensive map of the utility lines. We have a clear path forward. The project is back on schedule." The room erupted in applause, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. I looked at Sarah, and she gave me a small, private smile. It wasn't about the applause or the public recognition. It was about the look in her eyes. It was a look of love, of trust, and of a shared future. My family had thought I was too old for a promotion. They were right, in a way. I was too old for the old way of doing things. I was ready for a new beginning, a new life, and I was going to build it with her. The success on the Bayview Hunters Point project was a turning point for Harrison and Sons. The skeptical old guard at the firm, led by Robert, began to change their tune. They saw that Sarah's vision, combined with my experience, was not just a pipe dream. It was a winning formula. The firm's reputation for innovative, sustainable, and community-focused design began to grow. We were winning new contracts, not just for skyscrapers, but for urban revitalization projects, for green spaces, and for public works. My role at the firm evolved from just a senior project manager to a key strategist and partner. Sarah would often pull me into her office for brainstorming sessions that lasted for hours. We would sketch out ideas on a whiteboard, our conversations flowing between grand concepts and the nitty-gritty of construction logistics. She would challenge my pragmatism, and I would ground her ambition. It was a beautiful, creative dance. Our relationship, too, had settled into a comfortable rhythm. The initial shock and betrayal had faded, replaced by a deep and profound respect. We had faced the greatest challenge of our relationship, and we had come out stronger. We had learned to trust each other in a new way, to see each other not just as partners in love, but as partners in life. We had built something new, a relationship that was based on open communication, shared goals, and mutual support. One evening, a few months into her tenure, we were having dinner at a small, unassuming Italian restaurant we loved. The place was cozy, with red checkered tablecloths and a comforting hum of conversation. The San Francisco fog, a familiar companion, had rolled in, obscuring the city lights. "Remember when we used to sit here and you would tell me about your projects?" Sarah said, a soft smile on her face, "and I would tell you about my graphic design work. It feels like a lifetime ago." "It does," I said. "I was so focused on the destination, I didn't see the journey. I didn't see you. I was so caught up in my own little world, I never stopped to think that you had one of your own." "We both did," she said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "We were both so busy building our own lives, we forgot to build a life together. But now we are." The conversation was easy, comfortable, and filled with a quiet contentment. We talked about our day, about the progress on the Bayview Hunters Point project, and about our plans for the future. The conversation was no longer a negotiation or a confrontation. It was a collaboration. Later that week, Sarah called a company-wide meeting. The atmosphere in the room was electric with anticipation. The firm had never been so successful, so full of energy. She stood at the podium, her presence commanding and confident. She spoke about the firm's new direction, about our commitment to sustainability, and about our new groundbreaking projects. Then she paused, and her eyes found mine in the crowd. "And I want to take a moment to thank a very important member of this team," she said. "When I came on board, I knew this firm had incredible potential, but I also knew I needed a partner. Someone with the experience, the knowledge, and the passion to make my vision a reality. Someone who knew this city and this firm better than anyone." I felt a blush creep up my neck. I had a feeling I knew where this was going. "I'm talking about Marcus Reed," she said, her voice filled with a genuine admiration that was more powerful than any applause. "Marcus has been a senior project manager for years, a role he has excelled at. But now, it's time for a new title. It's time for a new role. It's time for him to be my partner. I'm officially naming Marcus Reed as the Chief Operating Officer of Harrison & Sons." The room erupted in applause, but this time it was different. This time the applause was for both of us. It was for our partnership, for our vision, for our shared success. It wasn't a promotion I had been chasing. It was a promotion I had earned, a promotion that was a natural evolution of our work together. I walked up to the podium, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked at the crowd, at the faces of my colleagues who had once seen me as a relic of the past and now saw me as a leader. I looked at Sarah, her eyes filled with a radiant happiness. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I am incredibly honored, and I'm ready to build something amazing with you." The journey had been long, painful, and full of unexpected twists and turns. But it had brought me here to this moment. I was no longer just the man who had been passed over. I was the chief operating officer of a new kind of company, a company that was a reflection of our shared vision. I had found a new purpose, a new passion, and a new life. And for the first time in a long time, I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Years passed. The Bayview Hunters Point Community Center became a resounding success. It wasn't just a building. It was a living, breathing testament to what a community could achieve with a shared vision. The urban gardens flourished, the art center became a hub for local artists, and the educational programs provided a lifeline for countless families. The project was the first of many. Under our leadership, Harrison & Sons became a leader in sustainable urban development, a firm known not for its skyscrapers, but for its heart. Our relationship, too, continued to flourish. The professional and personal lines had long since blurred, but in a way that was comfortable and true to us. We were a team, through and through. We would still have our late-night discussions about blueprints and budgets, but now they were a part of the tapestry of our lives. We built a home together, a cozy, modern house in the Presidio, a place where we could escape the hustle and bustle of the city and just be ourselves. One evening, we were sitting on our porch, watching the sun set over the Golden Gate Bridge, the sky a breathtaking wash of orange and purple. The air was cool and crisp, and we were wrapped in a blanket, just enjoying the quiet moment. "Remember that day?" I said, my voice low. "The day of the announcement. It feels like a lifetime ago." "It does," Sarah said, resting her head on my shoulder. "I was so scared, Marcus. Not just of the job, but of losing you. So I thought my ambition was a betrayal. I thought you would never forgive me. I was so lost in my own ego," I admitted. "I was so focused on that one prize, that one title, that I didn't see what was right in front of me. I had you. I had a life that was so much richer than any corner office could ever be. I just didn't know it yet." The phone rang. It was my father. He had become a regular fixture in our lives, a quiet supporter and a constant source of advice. "Marcus," he said, "I'm looking at the paper. Another award for that community center of yours. That's a real legacy, son. Something to be proud of." The words meant everything. My father, the man who had once been a source of such stress and insecurity, had become my biggest fan. He had seen the journey, and he had seen the result. He had seen that the real legacy wasn't in the title of CEO, but in the work we had done. The next day we were at the Bayview Hunters Point Community Center for a groundbreaking ceremony for the new phase of the project, a public library. The place was bustling with people, with children laughing in the gardens, and with artists setting up their work in the galleries. It was a place of life, a place of hope. A young man, a newly hired intern at Harrison & Sons, came up to us, his face bright with enthusiasm. "Mr. Reed, Ms. Harrison," he said, "I just wanted to say thank you. I grew up in this neighborhood. I never thought a project like this could be built here. You've inspired a whole new generation of architects. You've shown us that we can build for a better world." I looked at Sarah, and she looked at me. We were no longer just a couple in a relationship. We were the builders of a legacy that was not about money or power, but about people and community. Our story had been a long and painful one, filled with conflict and misunderstanding. But it had led us here, to this moment, to a place of shared purpose and deep love. My family had told me I was too old for a promotion, and in a way they were right. I was too old for the old way of doing things. But I was just the right age to start a new life. A life with Sarah, a life with purpose, a life that was built on a foundation of love and respect, a life that was, at long last, my own. The journey wasn't over, it had just begun, and I was ready for whatever came next, because I knew with absolute certainty that no matter what, we would face it together.